Hello and welcome to the Two&Fro podcast. I'm Diane.
I'm Raquel.
And I'm Carole. And we are back with the amazing Beverley Knight. You mentioned earlier, so obviously when you started, when you were younger, you did a performance as well as singing. And kind of. But talk to us a bit about getting into musicals and how that kind of happened, what was going on there.
So, as I say, I had this background in musical theatre because I was doing that at school. When I signed my deal, it was all music, and I did that for years. As you guys know, that's how most of people know me as singer-songwriter. But I kind of got to the end of my 30s and was looking around for something else, like what else is there? I've done lots of albums and I didn't just want to make another album. And around me, I'd seen people like J-Lo and Will Smith, people like that, diversifying. And at first I was like, well, either you sing or you don't. But then as I looked at it more, I was like, no, actually they've got more sense. They're the ones who are seeing what's going on in the future. And J-Lo doing everything, acting, singing, everything.
Back in Dancer First, wasn't she? And then,
Janet Jackson and that. And then Will Smith going from, I remembered him as the Fresh Prince, but actual the rapping, actual records, Girls of the World Ain't Nothing But Trouble and all of that. And all that. And then suddenly he's Hollywood royalty. So I'm looking at this thinking, this is an interesting way to go. This is all playing in the back of my mind just as I'm kind of at this crossroads in my career. Then this script arrived at my former management's door saying, we think Beverley would be great for this. And it was a script for this show called Memphis. And I looked at this script. They're describing the character that they want me to play and how she wants to be a singer. And she falls in love with this white guy who's a DJ, who wants to be a DJ. And, basically the beginnings of rock and roll. They fall in love, but their love's forbidden. It's Memphis, it's the mid-50s, it's the explosion of rock and roll, And I thought this could be wicked. This could be wicked. And this came about because Lenny Henry, who's known me a long time because we're from the same neck of the woods in the country, his partner was an early investor in the musical Memphis. And because Lenny knew I could act, they thought I'd be good for this role, Felicia Farrell.
Yeah. Smashed it.
I thought, well, they didn't have a theatre, they didn't have nothing, but they just had this thing and they knew they were bringing it over.
Around that.
So I was like, well, when this happens, call me because I'm definitely interested in this. But that switched on a light bulb in my head and I thought, I've got this background in musical theatre. That would be great. That would be great. Maybe 2 weeks after getting that script, I'm scrolling on Twitter. I kid you not. Good old Twitter. I read on there how someone who was following me was like, I think you'd be great for this part. And it was describing a cast change for the Bodyguard musical.
Oh, wow.
I was like, the Bodyguard. Like the film, The Bodyguard. Yeah. Actually, I could do that.
Definitely.
I know them songs. I know exactly the type of person Rachel Marin is because
and your first audition was Whitney.
I sang Whitney back in the day, and I was like, I can do this. So I said to my management, look, how do I go about getting an audition? I don't know anything really about this. I know this is the West End. It's a whole different level to Wolverhampton Youth Theatre. I know I can sing it, and maybe with some help, I'll be able to act it to a level that is satisfactory. They got me in front of, the right people, and Thea Sharrock, lovely Thea, who, was the director. And I auditioned, got the role, then wet myself thinking, what have I just done? Can I even... I wasn't worried about singing the song. I was just like, but there's actual proper actresses and proper people, they're going to be like, who's this fool who's come in trying to...
So you put yourself out there, so I want to expand myself. When it comes, you're worrying.
Exactly, because this was a big stretch. Little did I know that this would turn out to be one of the most weighty roles of the whole West End, of any show ever that's ever been in the West End. I had no idea.
And then it's two most iconic black productions as well, really, aren't they? Apart from like Lion King, where
You got
story-wise.
Lion King, and then now you got Dream Girls.
But they've kind of
exactly, and that became this big thing that for me, I just wanted to give it a go and see what happened.
Can I just say, you didn't just give it a go.
Exactly, I was about to say, you smashed it.
And as did you. I remember sitting across from you when I was playing Nikki, the sister, and thinking, oh my gosh, imagine little Carole from North London is singing across from Beverley Knight. I just have to tell you that. I just remember thinking that, like, what is this? So,
and it's just effortless every night. I used to stand literally beside the wings, literally just being like, Bev, you are incredible. So great to work with you.
That goes back to the fact that, as you said, you worked your way through this and knowing how to record without having to go back and it's easier just to record the whole thing again rather than so
then piece
doing 6 shows a week and having that consistency to like the stamina to be like I've got this, let me keep going. I think that is part of
and that's both of us because we both did that role, I don't know how, 1 minute you was Nikki, next minute you was Rachel. Why? Me no know how. But you killed it. I was there because when I wasn't there on stage as Rachel Marin, I was sneaking in the door to watch you as Rachel because I was like, listen to me, because girl is not joking.
You smashed it as well.
And I think our respective backgrounds, how we were raised and knowing how to sing live from the jump and just to because anyhow you sing wrong in church.
What?
I
just give you the eye.
Just look at you.
The head.
Exactly. You're not really blessing us right now. So, but that was the real catalyst. So the Bodyguard came in, did that for I think it was 9 months. In the end, I did it for at the Adelphi. And then by that time, Memphis was ready. So I left there and then went on to do Memphis for a year, which was amazing. Then went on to do Cats. The one came one after the other, after the other, after the other. And then went back into the Bodyguard again. Wow. So, and then from there, there's been all these other opportunities. So that was my path. So it wasn't like, I went to... Certainly didn't go to Bird, didn't go to Lane, didn't go to Lambda, didn't go to RADA, didn't do any of those things, but came up, I guess, a more practical, hands-on way, learnt on the go, as it were. But Killian Donnelly did the same thing. There's been a lot of people who did that. Oh gosh, he's amazing. That was the journey and still is the journey. So,
and what would you say motivates you and drives you to keep going, despite of any barriers in the industry?
I love what I do, and I know how lucky I am to do it because there's so many people out there who would love to be in my position to be able to do what they love to do as a job, not as a side hustle, but as an actual job. Even if I did do it, and I did obviously for a long time, did it as a side hustle, but I've been fortunate enough to be doing this my entire adult life. I did it, my whole life, but as an adult, this is the one and only thing I've ever done is to entertain people. I cannot explain how much I love it. It's so funny. We're performers now, talking to performers now.
Yes.
So, like Carole and Raquel, some days you wake up and you're tired and your stomach's hurting you and all that kind of business and
how much shows a week and you're
exactly going, and you drag yourself to the theatre and you're like, what? And you're going through warm up and you're like, oh my gosh. And then the beginners, you're down there at one beginners and you're like, oh gosh, oh my gosh. And then comes the overture and you're like, and you're on. Out of nowhere.
What's an overture for people like me?
Just the big, the music, the intro music kicks in. And then suddenly it's like that headache you had literally 2 minutes ago. Forgotten about that headache.
For me specifically in Bodyguard, it's that gunshot at the beginning of the show. That wakes me up.
You wake up quick time.
Wake up quick time after that gunshot.
Well, that would shock the headache out. Any pain you had was gone because that would make you jump. Oh, that gunshot at the beginning of Bodyguard was jokes.
So, like, with this, like, obviously now the current situation we're finding ourselves in. So we're knowing it's slightly harder for the industry to pick up and stuff. But you recently did a social distancing performance.
Yeah.
How was that? How did that feel for you, being back on stage number one, but then also with a smaller audience than what we would normally expect in a theatre? How did that feel?
Was at the Palladium.
That was at the Palladium, yeah. So, firstly, I have to big up hard LW Theatres, who own the Palladium, which is basically Sir Andrew Lloyd Webber and his team, Rebecca Kane Burton and those guys, because they have been driven and determined to try and get theatre back, because they know the value of the arts, both theatre and live music. I have to respect him, because he put his own hand in his pocket to say, look, I'll pay your band, I'll pay all your expenses, just please come and do this show, because we need to show this government how important this is and how we can make theatre safe and that we can do it. So I was like, I want to be there. This is historic, and I want to be at the forefront of helping to get theatre back in this COVID madness. In terms of the backstage area, I'll talk about that first. All the door handles and things all had like COVID safe handles, had this stuff. As you put your hand on the door handle, it just zapped all the bugs.
Telling me about this, a metal thing, isn't
some
it?
metal, a metal fixture on the door, on the door handles. So if you touched it, they're zapping all the germs, hand sanitizer everywhere. Before you could even enter the building, you had to have a COVID test. So you knew backstage you were in a COVID negative bubble.
Good, yeah.
Which meant you could relax, you could,
so it's doable.
So it was completely doable. In terms of front of house, similar thing with the door handles, and they had this spray thing as all the punters were walking through the door to, like, you're being, when they come on the plane and they spray that thing
for the insects, the bugs,
to debug the plane, and coming like that to debug the punter.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, you may enter, and then taking your temperature. So if that temperature alert went off, you cannot come in the building. Who shall not pass? But once you were in the building and everybody's in masks. Everybody's in masks. The thing that made it weird and that I really didn't like was the social distancing, because you've got a venue which I've played so many times, I'm so familiar with. 2,500 people usually in there, and when it's standing, when they take out the seats, it's 3,000 odd people in there. I'm used to that place being ram. I look around, person, seat, empty. Person, empty. 2 people, empty. Crazy. And that's what you're looking at. So when you're on stage and you sound check, you can hear the room, the reverb, the natural reverb of the room. And then when it's showtime, that reverb is lessened because the bodies soak up the reverberance in the room. They soak up the sound. So I walked on stage, there was no difference from sound check to people being in the... So you almost feel like you're singing to a sound check with a few people scattered around the building. And then these great big sheets of paper with this X on there to say you cannot sit here type thing.
Oh, God.
Pretty soul destroying. You walk on. I don't know what I expected. When I saw it when I was sound checking and there was obviously no one there, I was like, oh, okay, yeah. But to go back on to do the actual gig and there's not much difference was like, wow. And then the audience didn't know, are we allowed to stand up? Are we allowed to clap? Are we allowed to... So me being me, again, I've had a lifetime experiences of being on stage, although I've never done anything like that before. But I know what it is to play to a small audience. At the beginning of your career when you're playing to 10 man and the dog. You know how to get an audience involved. So you had to dig deep. First thing I did was get everyone on their feet, which then gave them permission to be, more active. And Public Health England were like, oh, do not encourage the audience to sing along. Do not encourage the audience to cheer.
What is their thing
blah,
of
blah,
singing?
blah, blah. I'm like, and they're all in masks.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
if they can't sing along, that means they can't speak. I mean, it just no logic. No. Droplets, apparently. Like, I was going to infiltrate them and they were going to infiltrate me when you think of the distances. I mean, ridiculous.
No sense, no.
Anyway, the audience was like, basically the audience collectively kissed their teeth and they sang along, they cheered, they made as much noise and were willing to get on board. But it still wasn't right because there were too few in number, 30% capacity. So there were too few in number to make it meaningful enough to get people back on stage. It wasn't financially viable anyway. This was Andrew Lloyd Webber spending his money just to prove a point. And that was hundreds of thousands because you had to have the full staff, the full everything. But I rate him so hard for doing that. But it was weird. It was really, really weird.
And you did the silent protest recently as well with Dawn French. And
How was that?
Well, I've been very vocal from the beginning of this whole madness, getting on with, I signed the letter that all the artists signed. I did a massive Zoom call with 52 MPs to plead the case for the music industry. And then I threw in theatre as well. Because that was organised by the music industry. I've just been, every opportunity I get, I've been talking about theatre and live music, saying you've got to get behind it. The protest was because, as you guys know only too well, painfully well, most of us overwhelmingly are freelance. And it operates like a 0 hours contract. For those who are listening who don't know, because I swear to God, people think everybody in the music industry or in theatre is ka-ching. And they're not. I'm like, the overwhelming majority are people who do this out of love because it sure ain't for just money because they're not paid enough. And it's like a 0 hours contract. If you work, you get paid. If you're not there, you don't get nothing. There's no such thing as sick pay. There's no such thing as holiday pay. So furlough did not exist. If you weren't on that stage, you were getting fresh air. Rishi Sunak patting himself on the back. Listen, I've brought in this and I brought in that. Well, yes, great. But there's a whole swathe of people who didn't even qualify for help.
So unfair.
Didn't even qualify for help. And that is the majority of people who are in theatre and in live music didn't qualify for help. It was to say, come on, government, you gotta either open the doors to theatres and let people be allowed to earn a living because they're living on fresh air and their mum and dad's graces or their mates' graces or whatever. People who've had to give up their houses and move back in with their parents. All kinds of madness. If you're not going to do that, you need to be able to free up some coin to give to people so they can live. Because there's approximately 3 million people who have been forgotten, and not just our industries, but other industries who have fallen through the
qualified for whatever.
Exactly, fallen through the gap. Forgotten Limited is the collective term for them. And so we stood outside and with our black clothes, black masks, just to protest the silence of theatre, and not only just theatre and live music, all the other industries around it that have been affected, all the people who are costume designers, set designers, lighting, sound, automation, all the restaurants in the West End, the restaurants in the West End. You know that special song, This Town Coming Like a Ghost Town? Oh my gosh. I mean, the West End is so dead.
Everywhere now,
Dead. Especially when I did that socially distant show in the Palladium. There was no one there. There was most of the shops closed. So all the ecosystem. It's not just what theatre and live music brings. It's the ecosystem that rely on those patrons to come in, to spend their money, buy their little pre-theatre dinner, and then watch a show, and then go out and get their drinks, and all the shops, of course, they're not getting the footfall. So the ripple effect is massive. So that protest was for all of it. All of it. I mean, I don't know. Sometimes it feels like, is anybody listening?
I was going to say, because you've been very passionate and vocal over this whole pandemic type thing. So do you feel in some way that the kind of responsibility is on you as a black woman to represent or not just as a black woman, just as an artist either, but just that there's a pressure on you to be able to speak out?
I feel wearing Beverley Knight, the artist, you know, theatre, music, all of that, I don't feel pressured to speak out. I feel like it's a passion, you know? I just bought a t-shirt that says passionate about compassion because my own personal situation, I've been fine this lockdown. I've been like, what? Just chill in the back garden. I've got massive beanbags. Number one, I got a back garden. I've got a back garden. You know how much people's locked up in their house, no back garden.
So true.
So I was sitting on my beanbag, chilling, me and the dog playing, me and James play fighting, just being stupid. And I was like, oh my gosh, I got time to actually enjoy my own house and my, you know, and my husband. And so I was all right. But what about the hundreds of thousands who weren't all right? Who was going to speak for them?
Exactly.
Who was going to amplify their voices? They're shouting. No one's going to listen to them. They'll try and be a collective, but unless there's someone who the media can latch onto and hang it on, then they just get ignored. So that's where people like me step in.
But then it can kind of be, I don't know for the rest of you, but a bit like, do you feel sometimes that you always have to step forward in the right way because you kind of represent the race in a way? Like if we're talking about Meghan Markle, for example, it's like you have to defend it regardless of whether you agree or disagree. You've always got to make sure that you are on the right side of things so that you don't let down the race. Or
that is a different pressure now. Now, wearing my hat as a black woman, as an educated black woman. Of course, the big things that has happened in 2020 has been COVID and Black Lives Matter. I mean, just revolutionized the fire, and it's really galvanized us as black people to say, you know what, done. Don't sit in here. I'm tired. Don't sit in here entertaining your nonsense and smiling and nodding and going along with your foolishness. We're done with that now. We just saw a man murdered in real time, slowly and painfully, and cry for his mother.
And more information trickled in,
which made it even more disgusting. And it's like it lit a fire with all of us. So it was more like I couldn't stay quiet because the vexation.
It's just too much, isn't it?
It was too much. You couldn't. If you stayed quiet, it was like, well, what are you staying quiet for? Because if you're ever going to speak out and make a stand and make your non-black friends understand what the hell you've been saying since you was 3 years of age, if there was ever a time to get them to understand, now is the time.
It felt like a pivotal moment, didn't it? When we
absolutely, we've all got to play our part and not to just wag our fingers and berate people. And you know,
it's time for change.
It was about change, effecting change, and to educate people, because no one likes being lectured to. No one likes being
told off.
Told off. You know, there are certain people in our society who need more than telling off. They need a proper cussing. Jim Davidson. But then there are other people who are like, oh my gosh, I didn't realise. I didn't realise. All those times I used to just take my hand and put it in your hair and stroke it without asking because I was fascinated by it. Okay, I get it now.
I see you.
And all those times when I've said to you that taxi doesn't want to stop for me, will you go and call the taxi for me because it will stop for you, it ain't going to stop for me. And your friends would look at you like, what are you on about?
And that's like the bit where they did the marches, the BML marches, and then they had the white people standing in front of their black friends because they knew that they would protect them.
Absolutely.
Well, that speaks volumes, doesn't it?
That was such a beautiful thing because ultimately this was not black people versus the world. This is the world versus racism. That is what this is.
The time is now.
That's everybody taking responsibility to get rid of this cancer that is racism.
It's like, what is the real virus here?
Exactly. So, you know, that's the point. I think I couldn't stay silent. My responsibilities as someone with a platform and with a voice was, if I'd stayed silent, I would have been letting down a whole bunch of people who are looking to me going, I can't speak.
Yeah. It was quite refreshing to see you actually doing that, because especially as people in England, there's not that many of you doing so well and in the limelight. To have you be so vocal, it was really, I felt that was a really kind of, it was a good thing that you did do that, because it felt like really refreshing to have that voice saying, this is what I'm saying, this is how I feel.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but this is not like just this year that you started to be so vocal. You've always had a voice and you've always been ready to fight, like, you know, speak your mind.
I've always spoken my mind, even when it's cost me. Even when it's cost me. It cost me, you know, the LGBTQ community I've always spoken for 20 how many years I've spoken for, to support. Even sometimes you speak out and these things, people don't like what you got to say. And social media now has given a voice to people who would be better served shutting up and closing delete their account. But even with those people, you can't stop the tide. The tide of change is here. And we're not going to stay silent anymore. No. We're not going to sit here and smile and nod while you patronise or you know, say your casually racist comments or whatever. It's time for that is done.
I did feel like this was a time where it felt like a good difference, though. I felt like it made a
good...
People
are beginning... Those who have ears to listen are listening. There's always going to be a hardcore who will not listen, who are willfully ignorant and will pretend that the ultimate cause is actually something bad or nefarious or whatever. And then those who really care get it and are willing to stand all together with us to say, let's all do this.
And there's more of those people, despite common, you know, recent events. I think there's more people
wanting the change.
Wanting the change.
Way more. Way more.
You know, Bev and I have got something going on because we're both like, we don't need auto-tune.
Yes. Got to give some renditions, Diane.
No, this is not what I was going to say. These two are singers, right, Bev? And what they did to me...
Right, they are.
Well, they say they're singers, and they said they had me do the jingle, and then that jingle didn't make the cut. Right? The jingle
Go on, Mum, show us.
No, we don't do that. Me and Bev will do something later.
Well, we appreciate Bev, everything
it's been amazing having you.
Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today.
It's a pleasure.
You're welcome back anytime you want to come and just
absolutely
hang out.
Come and
Sister Bev.
Yes, Sister Bev is so good. Thank you so much.
Honestly, such a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for listening, and remember to subscribe and do comment on our channel, and we'll see you next time. Bye.